Word. This is going to be about XenClient. Is XenClient the best in comparison to other client hypervisors that I'm talking about? I have been working with one of my customers, UK Central Government, on a desktop transformation project. Fortunately, Chris isn't here. If you've been in Chris's session earlier on, do look it up when it comes out. It was very interesting to talk about, not about a particular technology, but if you're going to do desktop transformation, what would that involve? And for my customer, one of the things that they needed to look at were client hypervisors, and we looked at a variety, so I'm going to share that information. This is going to be a smackdown. So there are some excellent documents on that, where VDI products have been compared, each individual feature of each individual product, painstakingly written out, investigated, researched, and then a tick box ticked. I think they're great, they're very interesting, but useless in terms of asking you, what is it you want to do with the products? How is it you want to make it work for you? How is it relevant to your business and what it is that you're doing? Quite often, those smackdowns just compare features. So we're not necessarily going to compare features. Or look at cats. What's to do with XenClient? That's a question that's I'm going to ask you. Who here has deployed XenClient or looked at it or installed it on any way, shape or form? Besides the guys from Citrix. It's very small use. It appears to be quite a niche thing. If no one really needs it, what is the purpose of having this product that sits on the very outskirts, like beyond even VDI, in a box of the FlexCast model? This is what Citrix say that you should do with XenClient. It is for a very specific set of things. Secure business desktop. Park that for a moment, because I can see your faces exactly. What does that mean? Yeah. Test and development environments, and isolated personal desktops. I think if this was your list, then XenClient does those things pretty well. But are those things relevant to you in the way that Citrix mean them? In that, what is a secure business desktop? Now this is secure, it's got a password on it, it's got an encrypted hard drive. It's a secure environment, but it's not running XenClient. And you could probably have organisations that are doing exactly the same thing. What was the point in XenClient if it's just to do this? Put an encrypted hard drive on. Lock out the BIOS. Don't need XenClient for that. Test and development environments, you need XenClient for that. Is that the best environment for that? Well, potentially not, because there's a very specific set of hardware for XenClient. If you want to do test and dev, maybe that specific set of hardware isn't relevant for what it is that you're working on. Maybe you need a bigger rig, maybe you need different hardware. And isolated personal desktops? What does that mean? As a Citrix person, what do you expect isolated personal desktops to be? Is it that you want your device, your own personal device, to have your stuff, and then the work stuff to exist in the same environment offline? Is that the intention? Is that relevant? In that, are users going to allow you to manage that device, to put it in that instance? Because users are funny things. They don't necessarily want to use their own kit for work. They'd rather work provided them the kit. So if they are working and accidentally spill red wine on it, it's not their problem, it's work's. And then it's why is a hypervisor at all? What is the purpose of a hypervisor in any environment? In a server environment, hypervisors are there primarily, I think, to allow consolidation of services. So instead of having 30 servers, each individually beautifully racked into a beautiful rack, there's one server managing all of those, so you reduce the amount of kit, easy to manage. Yes, no, or people think hypervisors for different things. Is that relevant for clients? Are you going to be running many, many services? Your average desktop user is going to run one instance of a service. Maybe for dev, but that's just such a small amount. How many times are you going to run multiple instances? At the same time, though, hypervisor does allow you to remove, or not be concerned of, the hardware itself. Separate out the operating system from the device.
Lunch was late, sorry.
That's right. I started without it, I need to catch up. So it allows you to separate. Now that could be interesting for clients, for individual devices. Because in a business environment, separating out the hardware from the actual thing that you're delivering, that gives you some extra options going forward in terms of managing that estate. From my customer's point of view, and by all means nod, chip in if you found the same thing, issues with traditional PC management were around the fact that they'd roll out a stack of HPs with the operating system tied in, and then their service provider would go, right, that's our build. And they go, right, expanded. Actually, we'd like just a slightly smaller laptop. Can we have one from Dell now, because they're cheap? And the service provider would go, yes, you can. That'll be a stack of money, please, because that's a new build. It's a different environment. Are you laughing because that's happened to you? Same sort of no, we just made a joke, did he? Well, it happened to you, did it? Yeah. You talk to any sort of large, even medium-sized organisation where they've got someone in to do their builds. If you try and bring in some new devices because they're more useful to the user, or because they're cheaper now, or because these are the ones they make, they don't make those ones anymore, it all costs time and effort and money. And from a deployment point of view, it's very, very complicated because you've got to call all these, you've got different instances to run, and the builds between devices, so your desktops and your laptops, are different, more cost to get. How can we try and remove that? Yes, Jim.
So, if we're thinking about the deployment issue and the different models, I mean, you're kind of missing the point with it just being about the images. So, I mean, laptops have come fairly price comparison to desktops for businesses nowadays. So it's quite common for people just to give out laptops. So those laptops now can be anywhere, although most people admit you just leave them on the desk.
Or in the lockup, yes.
Yeah. So the thing that I really like about the hypervisors on the endpoint is it gets rid of Pixie, because Pixie's shit.
Well,
so
we come on to that later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that deployment of that single image, yeah, great, you flatten the hardware, you can have a single image, excellent. But
it's also about a deployment method, isn't it?
Yeah, because you need to be able to deploy to these devices. You can be now inside or outside of your corporate environment.
Yes.
Yeah, and people have got, you know, reasonable broadband. And I've got 40 meg to my house now.
We'll come on to that. Yeah, Carol.
Yeah. So if you eliminate Pixie from the deployment methodology, it gives you much more flexibility and much more control.
Yes. Flexibility and control, not necessarily about a particular technology, not by giving them VDI.
No.
Because that VDI has a big eye. And you just have a device and you want to be able to manage
I just want VD.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about a better method of managing the environment that you've got. That's your goal. Not necessarily secure business desktops, test and development environments, isolated personal desktops. But what we like is a better method of managing the environment that we have, which quite often is individual devices given to users because that's how they work. So, different types of hypervisor. Yes, no, I might actually just... No, I'm going to do it anyway. Type 2 hypervisors are available. Someone this morning mentioned MedVid. Are they in the room?
No, it was Jeff.
Jeff?
Yeah.
That they'd actually done a MedVid deployment.
Yeah. And everyone went, what?
So type 2 hypervisors sit on top of an operating system already, yeah? And if you're a Microsoft customer and you've got SA...
actually done one.
Yeah, Jeff Walters presented first thing this morning about how he'd done a MedV deployment.
Because he wanted to run applications, he wanted to run an XP application. So he deployed MedVid. Yeah. Well, the issue I've got with type 2 hypervisors, so MedVid's one, VMware's got Workstation and Ace, MokaFive have their thing that sits on top of an operating system. You've got
Parallels.
Yeah,
so I think almost everybody that owns a Mac has got type 2 hypervisor.
Yes, because everybody who owns a Mac also needs Windows.
Yeah.
I think, okay. You don't?
Nope.
Don't need Windows at all?
Nope.
What are you going to know?
Well, in fairness, I don't need a local hypervisor to get to my Windows apps.
Because you
I
run
can serve them over the wire when I need them. If I want to use Visio Project, I just use them over the wire.
That is for you. I'm not saying that that's not a bad use case, but there are many use cases.
There certainly are, yeah. And it took me a long time to get away from it.
Yes. But an issue from a management point of view in an organisation is you've still got to manage that operating system that the player runs on. So have you really solved your management purpose? Yeah, already you've deployed XP in Windows 7 environment, but what about the Windows 7 stuff? How do you manage it? Type 1 hypervisors are installed directly. I kept changing the music last night. Turn the volume up. So, there's not just NxTop, there's not just MokaFive, there's not just XenClient. There are 3, 4, Leaf, what's that? I'll come back to that. Somewhere at the end, say Leaf, and I'm going to find out who it is. There's 4, but I've only looked at 3. I've only installed, played with, and tried to manage environments with XenClient, MokaFive, and NxTop. There are other, more secure, if it's about security, Type 1 hypervisors. There's one from a company in the States that's authorized up to EAL6.
I just thought it does all the secure government stuff.
Absolutely secure government.
Yeah.
Do you know how to do that? You have a PC with 2 hard drives in, 2 network cards, physically 2 of everything in one device. Very, very secure, not particularly portable. And only works, if you think if you think XenClient's HCL is limited, one device from Dell for this company, and then there's a company in Germany who do a couple of different Lenovo devices, and they separate out, and they've been authorized to a particular security level. But that's not about management per se, that's about security. It's about, so how you manage delivery of the operating system environment in that client hypervisor, that's up to you. They don't do anything. And of course, XenClient, which is now version 2. Although I did see slides with 2.1.
There's a
2.1's out.
And that's got the XP version.
Okay, so you've got that authorized, but is it US authorized version? So if you did really want a secure environment?
I can't remember, I don't think it's whether it's got the formal certification, because they take a long time.
They do, and the interesting thing with any formal certification is that's on the last code base. If you're adding new features in, that's a feature that you use. You can't have a secure one, because that's had to go through the list.
They're all being revamped, so no one's doing anything for the next year or so.
Right. NxTop 4 has just come out, and I have had a look at that. That's quite busy, and I will refer to some of the new features to that. And MokaFive came out, and now that broke my installation of 3.6, and now I can't seem to get a license on it, but I'll talk about that. So which client hypervisor will work for me? The question is not, which one should I go out and buy? Which one do I need? What do I need to install? The question should be, what is it that you need from your deployment method, from what it is that you're going to do and manage with your users. So maybe MedV is the solution for you.
No, never.
Maybe. However, if you want to manage it well, actually get some decent performance and be able to maintain your environment without wanting to kill someone, maybe MedV isn't that particular solution. But it is about understanding what it is you'll expect to get from it. And I think quite often when people are saying what I want to get from it is a better managed environment than what I had before. If we were going to do a comparison, how would we do it? The way I did it was to...
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, are you?
Steal that image out of there.
Cool. It took me freaking hours, that. The presentation content themselves is typically about 5 minutes of technical content and about 3 weeks of looking up images that are relevant in Google.
I start photo.
Yeah.
Ones that don't have watermarks on them.
Yeah. Or in Paint with individual pixels taken. You've done it as well. Yeah. What we did was we set down what it is that we wanted from the environment. We wanted to be able to deploy an image We wanted to have multiple images on a device. Why did we want to do that? In the organisations, quite often there'll be a machinery of government change where suddenly you have to get a load of people come and sit in your office. How that works in a moment to get multiple pieces. Now you could say, oh, this is a VDI answer. Yeah, we'll do VDI. We haven't got the infrastructure to put VDI in. We haven't got the money to put it in. How can we get those multiple images on one device so that users haven't got stacks with monitor switches and cables around the back? Yeah? How can we deliver that? And how can we deliver it so that the image for a PC is the same as an image for a laptop? And how can we remove this reliance on individual pieces of hardware? That's what we looked at. And then we looked at these three products to see which one was the best or could deliver in that particular environment.
So, I mean, isn't it not very much about the end user though? It's about, you used it yesterday, it's about...
Because it takes fucking hours to find it. Right? So there's an element of reuse and recycling, which in today's society where it's all about green and this is important. And it's a really cool picture because it shows the variety. Well, hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll answer your question.
So if you have a client really, I mean, that should be invisible to the user because what user gives a shit about a client hypervisor?
It goes back to something that was said in one of the sessions earlier on today. Which user cares if it's an operating system on a server? I think it might have been Chris.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? But operating on a server or an operating system that's a desktop. So is it Windows 7 or Windows 2008 R2? The user, typically, 99% of them don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Can I still play Minesweeper?
So really, this is a vendor play, right? Because in the race to the bottom of prices for hardware, the way the vendors differentiate themselves is by installing crappy bloatware in your OS, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you get your Lenovo presentation software, battery draining Wi-Fi, and it's all shit that you just want to install straight away.
Now,
so if you
I'll let you know.
So if you've got a client hypervisor, that gives the hardware vendors some really interesting options because what they can do there is they can install some kind of virtual appliance in the background which is now completely invisible to the user.
You're now fucking up my last slide. Carry on.
And you can do some really interesting things because you can do some kind of remote support.
Hold on.
Do we stop now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Because otherwise, this slide is a waste of time. And that actually cost me money. So hardware support. So when we were looking at evaluating all these devices, a range of hardware was important. XenClient, when it came out, the issue that we had with it was that hardware compatibility list, A, was small, and B, consisted of devices that were no longer in production. The issue that we were trying to solve, let's try and get different devices in, we want to change the devices, instantly XenClient was making that problem even worse by specifying devices that we couldn't buy. We needed services that would sit across different devices, and ideally with a vendor who would engage with suppliers directly, so that when the supplier brought out some new equipment, the client
what you're saying
hypervisor
is you need some kind of like client hypervisor based on maybe Windows where all the driver support is already there. And
no,
then,
actually no, not on Windows where it's already there, because sometimes it's not, and then you have to change your build in order to accommodate the driver. No, I want, and potentially I don't necessarily want Windows. There are government departments that are trying to remove that. I need a device that will remove. Thanks very much. So I don't want to necessarily be limited by the client hyper or a management system focusing on particular devices.
So Hyper-V is a Type 1 hypervisor that can run anything.
We also wanted a decent user experience. What we wanted to do, and this goes back to Jim's earlier point, we didn't want the user to be overly aware that they were running a hypervisor. As far as they were concerned, it should just start and work. So there's another difficulty with XenClient in this first instance, was that you appear in XenClient. That's, if you're a techie, awesome. Create your operating system, marvellous. Install your own OS, brilliant. If you're banning accounts, you don't want any of that. You just want Windows so that you can start Minesweeper. And ideally, it's not slower. Now, to give a user something that's slower than what it has before, even if it's really useful, even if it's got Office 2010, even if it does the really big Minesweeper, useless if the experience, it's slow to start up, it's slow to shut down. Okay? And this was important. We didn't want to be herding cats. Again, ours to find that one.
You drew that one, I thought.
I'd have been proud of that.
Because it actually looks like you. The ginger one at the front.
Probably a bit later in the evening. This one, I'm going to answer the question. Sorry?
Little red scarf.
How can we manage these environments? What we don't want to do is put in a service that is difficult to maintain over time. We don't want to put something in that will last about 3 or 4 months and then become as shit as all the stuff that was before. Going back to Chris's points, you know, it's not about. We didn't want to buy the car, run it into the ground, and then think of something else. We wanted to put in place a system that would allow us to nurture and maintain the environment that we've got. We didn't necessarily want the users to be able to create their own VMs. This was a difficulty with, again with XenClient, was that all of the management had to be done on the device. We didn't like the VDI concept of doing it all centrally. Let's all manage it here, back at base, and then distribute it to the user. And the way the XenClient works is you have to have a device and then upload. Now in version 2 it's much better than in version 1 it was each individual instance, wasn't it?
So that's the synchronized in version 1.
Yeah, but it's the way of deploying the actual image instances. You couldn't necessarily deploy that to a large amount of users in version 1.
Yeah, you could use it there.
No, we struggled to get that deployment method to work.
Okay.
Also, we struggled with how do we deploy XenClient itself.
You get a blog with a CD.
It had to be a CD. You can now pixie boot.
You could stick it on a USB stick.
Yes, you can. But not in the first instance, though.
You could hack about a lot of stuff.
Yes. Don't like hacking about, because that's not management, that's fucking about. Why should we spend loads of time on it? Ideally, this is something that you feedback that gets made better. So it did in version 2. So, out of all of those environments that we looked at, which one did we find the best? I obviously didn't want to do a smackdown. I'm not going to list all of the individual features and say this is what we chose. Instead, I'm going to use the British tried and trusted method of playing top trumps. Has anyone else ever played top trumps? Yeah, all the British. Awesome. If you were a child, I'll explain top trumps for anyone who's not British. It's a simple game that can last as long as you like. It's effectively a pack of cards with a set of characteristics with a number against them. And what you do is you say, right, what card have you got? And you go, oh, I've got, you pretend it's battleships. I've got HMS Belfast. Excellent. How many guns have you got? And you go, oh, mine's got 5 guns. You go, oh, my ship's got 10. You win. You get my card. And we start again. And you pick a card. And this goes on. Well, I remember games going on all afternoon. 4-hour card journeys. Yeah, well, you just continually recycle a pack.
We are old enough that this is, pre.
My kids are old. No, because I bought them because they're awesome to play. They never run out of battery. If you lose them, it doesn't really matter because you could just pass them.
Good for card journeys.
Good for card journeys because there's no law against playing top trumps. There is against playing a Nintendo DS. So I've given some values. They are all in different colours. The reason for that is I did them at different times and forgot which colour I'd used the first time. There's no significance to the fact that these are all in white and this one's in black. So in terms of XenClient hardware variety, is still relatively small. Only has support for Intel chips as well, so it does reduce the amount of devices that you can do. We found that that's a problem in terms of what it is that we can support in terms of devices that have already been purchased by people. The fact that, all right, you need Intel VT chips, that's not necessarily a problem for us, because Intel VT is all the virtualization technology that's in Intel, that's been around for a while. The fact that it needs 2 gig of RAM is not necessarily that much of a problem because most devices that we've got, you know, I'm going to say something, but you just have to wait. Not that was a problem. However, when we came to roll it out, we found that we could put other client hypervisors on, and NxTop would just not install. There'd be an issue with NICs, there'd be an issue with video drivers. So we found that quite limiting in terms of. Yes, Jim, what else would you like to say?
Said you, heckles like a bastard. So,
like a bastard, actually being one.
Yeah. So I tried to put XenClient on my last work laptop, and it was only HCL. I went, yeah, I can go and install the V2. And I tried it, said your Intel VT is not enabled.
Oh, that's a complete crack-on. And this is with all of the devices, all of them experience this.
So,
because quite typically now, when you do get VT, every single BIOS needs to be visited and turned on. Why can't they just have it on by default?
I don't know. But I went to the BIOS and I turned it on. Great. And then I tried to install XenClient again, that you don't have any Intel VT. So there was some kind of BIOS error or chip error. So I sent the laptop back to Lenovo, because this is how much I care about client devices, and complaining about the VT feature not being enabled. And they sent me back saying they'd replaced the motherboard. At which point I gave it.
Yeah, but there's a difference between VT and VT minus X and VT minus D, which is virtualization support. And I also had an issue with my hardware, which was on the HCL, but in fact this little thing wasn't the right series of the processor, and so it failed finally.
Yeah.
So everyone else had on the hardware.
So even if it's on the HCL, it
Yeah,
doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Isn't too
Yeah.
We found this problem with XenClient, that's why it's got a relatively long one. Same, the VM management, what I mean by that is how you can manage and maintain an individual instance of a VM on a device. It's not particularly pretty. You can create one, you can synchronize it up, and with version 2 we found easy to deploy, but it's still not great. So you've got to get a device, make individual instances, synchronize up. This can be tricky to deploy it to a large number of users. End device control, there's nothing there. You can kill a device, so if you lose one you can send out a kill signal. That's pretty much it. What we wanted was the possibility of actually doing device control. Quite often these laptops are in environments where we might want to do things like turn off the USB and turn it on, or disable the ability to add printers or not. Couldn't do any of that with the device. User experience though, when you actually got an operating system up and running, was pretty good once you ignore the fact that XenClient popped up. And there was no clever integration with Wi-Fi stuff. So when users tried to attach to Wi-Fi, the Linux nature of the Xen environment did show through. Scared the bejesus out of people. So the documentation is pretty good. Readable. Not particularly thorough though, and doesn't necessarily give you an idea of the architecture and infrastructure to put a large environment together, because XenClient is geared towards testing. Techie people doing tech stuff.
You didn't pay Doug around quite a lot of money to go right like
Doug did a load of stuff, didn't he, in order to try and manage it with a load of scripts, which sounded that he should get out more, basically. Make people interact, see the sunshine. I spoke to him about it actually, and he did say he would much rather get out more. And automation, there was no way of automating that environment or linking it in with other environments. So potentially I want to put this in as part of a whole technology stack solution. How can I take the information about all my Xen stuff and pass it on to SCCM or integrate it with nothing for that? It's also quite a bit of a shit car that if you've got it in top drums. Probably one that would go around all the time. MokaFive bare metal player, as I've said, ignore the fact that it's online. Hardware variety, now although it's a bare metal player, it's actually an operating system. It's not as bare as they'd like to have, however it is hardware support, brilliant. Installs on all sorts of devices. VM management, like XenClient, you do have to do your management on the end device. Personally, I find that quite far-flung. You have to install a lot of shit on an individual device in order to create your VM, in order to upload it. It's faffy. But the end device control, the management of that environment with their management console is really quite granular. It's very impressive, and nicely you can delegate administrative privileges to do different stuff. The whole back-end console stuff is very well put together.
You've broken the top trumps rule of having different categories on different calls.
No, I've added one.
So
Getting a free license. Yeah. Well, no. This is just me being fucking annoyed. Basically, that's what that is. I'll come to that in a minute.
That's minus 100 because they wouldn't give you one.
Yes. It's XenClient. You can download, install, have a play about. NxTop let you have a couple of user licenses for nothing. You know, that's an important thing. MokaFive Quest. You download it. You get a license for a period of time. Doesn't work. Doesn't install. No one responds back to you. Just a 5-user license will do. Just let me have a look at the product. It's as if they've got something really cool and useful. They're not going to share it with you because you're not good enough. So they get minus 100 bastards. Bollocks. Never mind. Automation, no, there's a similar problem really. Look, it is a relatively new technology in terms of managing, integrating into your environment so you can manage your environment better. So those automation tools are probably a bit keen asking for them now, but it's the type of thing that we should be asking for with a view to managing in the future, I think. Any more questions on that? However, the documentation is brilliant. Because they not only talk about how to use their product, but they talk about the architecture and planning. They talk about the bandwidth needed in order to deploy this service for remote users. What type of links that you would need, how you would put them in place, how you would distribute the image store so that it was useful to the users, so the users got the best experience and an easy delivery model. Really, very good documentation. And then NxTop version 4 from Virtual Computer, quite a small gaff. We like this a lot. Originally there was no bare metal player, this is the one that we went with, and this is the one that we're still going with in comparison to XenClient. Just the whole management environment, the delivery mechanism, the fact that we could create an instance in the organisation and then deploy it out to all of our different devices was very useful and fitted what it is that we wanted to do. Ticked all of our boxes. Hardware variety supports Intel and AMD, has a wider graphics support. We've had some fun and games with some Wi-Fi, but with some Wi-Fi NICs, but they've been very, very responsive in, if we say them, there's a particular issue, we get a very good response back in terms of, here you go, here's a resolution. Yes?
Why do I feel that they're always on the verge of going bust?
I have no idea.
I didn't get that information when I met the CEO.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Every time I've gone to speak to them at stands and stuff, and I just get the impression that they've done a lot of work and they've been around for a long time, but they just haven't sold enough licenses.
Interesting. I have not had that impression. I think the difficulty they've got is they've taken a different message, and we'll go on to that. Let's say, well, let's suggest, I'll say it again, that's Citrix's message. Yeah? That you need XenClient because you want a secure business desktop, that you want to do test and dev and isolate the personal desktop. So that for the 40 people that needs, XenClient, that's your gun. Yeah? What? Don't know, Prezi, could you? Just saying. What these guys have done, I think it's a mistake, is they've said this is the way that you can manage all of your devices. This is your new device management platform. And the difficulty they get is quite a number of organisations go, well, we've got SCCM, we've already got something, what do we need this for?
Pixie shit.
But it's not about just managing, there's all sorts of other things you could be doing with it as well. And it's differentiating, it's not just a management solution, that it could allow you to deploy to different devices, it could allow you to manage delivery of an operating system, and then manage that application environment with what it is you've already got. But they don't, they say you take that out and replace it with this. So it's not necessarily listening to what the customer, it's not a sit down and engagement with the customer of what it is they need. Although Andy did make a good point in Chris's session, that sometimes people have got an idea and a thought, and it's very difficult to unthink that from. So virtual computers issue, which I think they're getting better at, is not necessarily going, we can solve all of your PC management deployment problems. They should be going in and having a bit more of this, I think. But definitely not us.
Yeah,
Precise.
I just get the feeling that they've not solved it.
No.
I'm relying on a large government contract coming their way anytime soon.
We, like many of their customers, have bought 150, 200 licenses. And that's the volume it's at. Maybe that's the difficulty. They're yet to have that big 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 seat.
So they've got a lighthouse account. Maybe that's why, because it's all to us.
So it's quite small.
Some kind of big references which say, look, we've scaled, we've got this.
Ideally. Now, some of the stuff that's coming in the future, like 4, for instance, integrates directly into the Windows environment. So you don't have to drop down to the NxTop engine and only configure your Wi-Fi like you do in the bare metal player, like you do in NxTop. There's just an icon on your desktop, all pops up. It's all very neat, very clever from the user's point of view. You can get it to boot straight into that environment.
Why is Wi-Fi so hard for client hypervisors? Because that's the thing that all the client hypervisors triple up. It's always big. Yeah, but I mean, that's take it to version 4 to get it right. But why is it that it's a technically difficult thing to do? Wi-Fi.
Well, it's not technically difficult. They've just never thought of doing it. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the deployment methods have typically been for land-based devices. Typically, because it's from virtual computers' point of view, it's a PC management environment. So how many PCs are all done by Wi-Fi? No, it's just land-based, isn't it? So don't necessarily need that. And they've only just started to think, hang on, we can do laptops as well. That's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. But then when it's a laptop, it's a Wi-Fi, and then it's Wi-Fi. Then how do we manage that?
That's always difficult because you don't get Linux drivers for a lot of the hardware.
Yes. So opportunities beyond the desktop. We looked at this to manage our laptop environment better. What we're now thinking about is what's going to happen when Windows 8 comes out that has a client hypervisor built in. Also, if you talk to Intel, anybody here, they're doing some really whizzy stuff with their virtualization that's already on the chip. Yeah. So it may be in the future that the actual hypervisor part is part of the processor itself. Intel deliver that functionality, and then it will be about how do you manage those individual instances in those devices.
You do end up with a lot of separate challenges with that, don't you? Similar to the HDX SoC and Windows 8 SoC in terms of ongoing management and update and so on.
Oh yeah, and also it does tie you into Intel.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a question, but what we perceive client hypervisors giving is that pillar that Chris talked about, those desktops, we can now manage centrally at a level that isn't an operating system. So that's always a giggle, isn't it, when the operating system breaks or dies for whatever reason, or you want to change it because you need to move, or you want to sit something by it. There's no way of doing that with a standard traditional PC, but with a client hypervisor we've got that option.
And it's definitely an exciting thing with regard to Jim was saying earlier, stealing some of your thunder, but backup and restore of laptop, which is just a hideous pain for enterprises.
See, now that's the nice thing with hypervisors, isn't it? Because with a hypervisor you separate out the operating system, but also with a hypervisor, user data. User information can be separated out again. Very difficult to do with a traditional operating system. But now you've got that layered approach, potentially. Now you've got the hypervisor that gives you the option of a layered approach at a different point in time. So So you can start saying, I'll tell you what, Mr. User, we don't necessarily want to check out and check in VDI instances, but we'd like your data to travel around with you. Citrix should use that, some sort of follow me data type thing. A neat marketing play. Yeah, I'll let you have that one. But we don't see it as the only deployment method. It is interesting though, if you want some of the really whizzy remoting stuff, the Aero stuff, you need a Windows desktop. You need a Windows OS on that end device, don't you? Some of the really neat Aero, doesn't that need Windows? Doesn't it need RDP? Doesn't it need Windows 7, Windows 8?
Most extensions needs it.
Yeah. So how do you manage that Windows environment in that particular instance? Say you do need an operating system that's a desktop and you're going to do some XenApp stuff, how do you manage that instance? Because there isn't necessarily a play for that. And how do you manage it across devices, not just one device as is traditionally?
Andy, one quick thing. How important do you think it becomes that the hypervised layer is invisible to the end user?
I think that's a vital part. One of the things that we looked at, and one of the things that we worked with, definitely with virtual computer, to make sure that that's hidden. I think in version 4, with the stuff that they've done, it's becoming more and more hidden. Ideally, they don't see it at all. Granted, techies might love the fact that they can see it.
Yeah.
Anne in accounts doesn't want to see that, she just wants to crack on what it is that she's doing.
So, especially if they're going to be connecting to different wireless networks and so on, not having to drop out to any external component.
Don't need to in version 4 or NxTop.
No.
I think that's crucial, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean,
what I'd like to see.
I agree. The question is, even when you boot the machine, should there be a scenario where you don't, kind of see anything different? No splash screen.
I even hate seeing banned messages for users.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing I want different is better graphic support.
Yeah.
NxTop is poor in comparison to MokaFive and XenClient when you actually find the right XenClient stuff. I can't do DirectX, and I can't do DirectX. This is a problem because what I'd like to do is manage all the BTs in my house using this type of stuff. Yeah, but Kieran wouldn't be able to play Minecraft because you're laughing, but it's a user requirement.
That doesn't require DirectX.
No, but the Java that it runs on requires hardware support that is lost when you deploy it on top of NxTop, not necessarily on top of XenClient. So it'll work on XenClient, but it doesn't work on NxTop. But I want the management of NxTop.
Should we carry on just talking like that?
Yeah. Absolutely. I can make more slides of it, actually.
Yeah.
So, always ask a question and then answer it. Unlike most consultants. Is XenClient the best? If you want to do what it is that Citrix say, which is provide a test and development environment, high performance, and give you an isolated personal desktop, then XenClient is pretty good. But I think client hypervisors, the technology, the concept, the idea, is far wider and far broader than just that. But if you consider that client hypervisors can give you a whole delivery model for devices that aren't necessarily VDI, or devices that are local to the user, offline users, then XenClient isn't the best. There are other options. Thank you very much.